guys, thank you so much for being here. So today I'm gonna just do a mishmash of things, and I don't even know what I'm gonna title this video yet, but what I wanted to do is just work on my layout over here, and this is probably I have 2 layers of paint on these pages. So I can see that that's a first layer, it's a stencil, and I can see some white page here, and then I have a second layer that's kind of covering up the stencil, and you know, I've got some marks over here and some opaque paint. So what I'm gonna do is just dive right in and try to see if I can find an image. So right off the bat, I'm thinking that I want this to be a moon. So I'm gonna just circle that right over there. And also I am thinking that I want this to be the stencil over here. I want it to be her neck, and I want to retain that. So I don't want to cover that up with any paint because I'm really loving the colors and the design and just the flow of it. So I'm gonna see if I can retain that somehow. So I think I am going to kind of place her face over here, and I'm just using my blue Stabilo that I've dipped into water, and see, I think I'm gonna be able to kind of go like that. And when I work in my art journal, I'm not really concerned about proportions. Like, obviously her shoulders over here are too broad for her face, and so it's not proportionate, but I'm not really going for proportion, because in my sketchbook I am wanting to go more for a feeling and a mood and design and the way it looks and feels to me, rather than proportion. I hope I'm making sense, because for the width of her shoulders, the way they're looking over here, her face should be much bigger, but I'm not really concerned about that right now. So I am now going to go onto this page over here and try to find a figure, or maybe 2 figures over here. And I'm thinking like over here maybe. And for this spread, I'm just getting the feeling that I really want the figures to just cover up most of this space, whether it's like her dress or her robe or whatever it is. I just want the figures to dominate. So I'm gonna go for another figure over here, and I'm trying to see if I can see. It was easy over here because I knew I wanted that stencil to be her neck, so I could place the figure over there, but for here I'm just kind of, maybe I'm gonna go like this. like so. And there we go. Okay, now I'm not sure if I want to apply collage over here or if I just want to go in with my oil sticks. I'm not sure yet. And I'm just trying to kind of figure out if I want a solid background or if I want to make a line over here and then divide the background into a top and a bottom. And I'm not 100% sure yet, so I'm just gonna leave that alone. So what I am gonna do is I'm gonna fill in the dresses over here with a solid color. And I think I'm gonna go for I think I'm gonna go for grays for all of them in just varying tones of gray. And that's really gonna make the colors pop a lot. And I just love grays too. So as much as I love bright colors, I love the grays. I actually was fortunate enough to visit the art studio of Cézanne, the gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous still life French painter Cézanne. And he meticulously obsessed about having the exact shade, perfect shade of gray for his walls, because he did not want any kind of reflection from the paint of his walls to affect his painting. And I know that might seem like terribly kind of like really anal, but when you look at those walls, you will understand like why he obsessed about it. It is the absolute most delicious, perfect neutral I have ever seen. And he did the same thing with his floors. Like he took out all the I think there was, I can't remember what it was, if I don't know if it was marble or tile or something that was already on his studio floors, but he took it out and he put in wooden floors for the same reason. He didn't want the reflections and the contrast. He didn't want it to influence his painting. And it is just, oh my god, his walls were the most amazing bluish gray neutrals I've ever seen in my whole entire life. And after seeing it, it really made me appreciate neutrals even more. And so I am going to just kind of bring it down here, and I'm not going to keep, I might keep a little bit of this background here, but most of it is going to get covered up. Like I might keep, see, I'm keeping that and that for now. It might all get covered up at some point, but I'm just going to keep that for now. And so for here, I am going to go for a darker kind of a gray, I think. I need to lighten this up a little bit here. And this is just my Waverly chalk paint in cashew and ink. And I've mentioned it many times before, but with just those two colors, you can get an infinite array of neutrals. Okay, so I don't know if I'm gonna keep that, actually. It's looking kind of strange now that I'm looking at it. I don't know if I'm gonna keep that or make that solid, but anyways, I'm gonna move on. If I don't know what to do about a certain part of my page, I just leave it alone and let it work itself out, because, you know, sometimes I just need to leave it alone and get some perspective. So I'm gonna go over here and as much as I don't want to cover up this stencil, I am going to cover it up, because if I keep it on the dress and I keep it on the neck, it's going to be too distracting, and then it's really not going to show up. It's not going to have the same punch that I want it to have. So I am going to cover all of that up over there. I can let a little bit of it show through, maybe, just for interest. Okay, and for over here, I think I am going to go with because there's already some darks over there, I think I'm gonna go with a very light gray, like an extremely light gray. And so far there's no collage on this spread over here, and I don't think I'm going to put any. I may, but I don't think right now, I don't think that I'm gonna put any. So I'm gonna let some of this pink show through, just for interest. And sometimes you don't have to lay a flat field of color on something. You can just suggest it. And what I mean by that is, like, sometimes I go in and I paint this whole, like, I just put like one coat and then another coat, and all you see is just the whole space is just of this one color. But sometimes you can just suggest a color, and what I mean by that is like what I'm doing over here, which is, you know, if you're looking at it, your eye is going to read it as a light gray color, but I've let some of the background show through so that there is some variation and interest, so it's not a flat field of color, and, you know, it just gives it more interest. And if you really look at a lot of your favorite art, like when you're in a museum and you are looking at an original piece of art, because in photographs a lot of the details can get lost and they don't always show through, but when you're looking at an original piece of art and you look at it very, very closely and you isolate parts of the painting, you will see that what your eye looks at and reads as one color is not always that color. So if your eye is looking at, say, this, you know, this space over here, you're gonna read this whole space as like a dark gray, but when you look at it, there's some variation. There's some pink over there, there's yellow, there's this white, you know, there's specks of white, and there's different variations of the gray. There's some blue here. So it's just something to kind of like pay attention to when you are looking at original art, and that way you can see how the great painters did that as well, and then you can try to incorporate some of that into your art if you want. So I am now gonna stop messing around so much with that, and I think what I'm gonna do is I am gonna add oil sticks to the face area. And I posted a video a little while ago about how to use oil sticks in mixed media, and these are Shiva oil sticks, and I did a video on it if you were interested in using oil sticks. And now there's also a blender that you can use to blend your oil sticks, but I don't use a blender, and I think I might even have a blender. It's just like it looks like this, and it's just like you can blend all your oil sticks together, but I actually just use my finger, and I prefer that because the heat from your finger is going to melt the oil, and it's just like a much more tactile experience, and I really enjoy it. So it just gives me a lot more kind of control and a personal touch, I guess. But I like using my fingers. So I'm just gonna, I think that's a yellow ochre. So I am gonna let some of that stencil show through over there. I was gonna cover the whole thing up completely, but now I kind of think I'm gonna let a little bit of that show through. And I need some of this orange over here. And the thing with the oil stick is if you don't use it for like a few days, like maybe 3 or 4 days, it will grow like a skin, and so you have to peel the skin off, and it's not a big deal at all. You just kind of peel it off a little bit. And I think I need like a burnt sienna. So I'm just building up her face and kind of modeling her face a little bit here. So these oil pastels, that is a mistake. These are not oil pastels. These are oil sticks. These oil sticks, they will dry completely in a couple of days. And I mentioned this in the video about oil sticks. Depending on where you live and the humidity, it takes anywhere from 24 to 48 hours for it to completely dry, and you'll know that it's dry because when you go to touch it, it won't move. Like you can layer other media on top of it, or put collage on top of it, or whatever you want. But right now it is wet, and it is gonna have to completely dry. So I'm gonna do the same thing over here and over here, and I'm just gonna add this, and I'm gonna retain some of the top part, and I'm gonna retain some of this pink part here. So I am gonna go like that and add some of this yellow ochre over here, and use my finger and just smush it all up in there. So sometimes I build up my page with a lot of layers of paint and collage and other mixed media. And then sometimes I just go in like I did now, and this was only my second layer. And then I decided like, hey, I want to put my figures down, and I want to put my, you know, I want to start making my figures. But sometimes I'll wait until it's like my fourth or fifth layer before I do that. And I think for me, what determines whether I start adding my figures or not is whether I'm happy with the general layout of the page, in the sense that I think there's a lot of interesting things going on, whether it's interesting colors or interesting patterns, or, you know, things that really stand out to me that I don't want to cover up. If there's a lot of parts of the page that I want to cover up, then I'm going to keep on working. So I think I need a yellow ochre over here. And my burnt sienna. So as you can see, I left the top part of the face because I want to incorporate that into the final image. At least I do now. I don't know later on if it might not work and I might want to cover it up, but for right now I want to keep it. So I'm going to add some of this orangey red here to bring some life into her face. And add some of the white to lighten it up. So while I'm working here, I am kind of thinking about this background, because I still don't know if I want to say, you know, draw a line here and then divide it, or if I want to just do a whole field of color in the back. So I think what I'm going to do is maybe make one, like, I don't know. Okay, let me see here. So I think I'm gonna kind of, I see like I could make a crown here, maybe, you know, like I could, because I really love this stencil, and so I think I can kind of retain that. Now, whether it stays or not is anyone's guess, but for right now, I'm gonna retain it. So I think what I'm gonna do is use my ultramarine blue and turquoise, because there is a lot of blue here. So I think that's gonna be a good kind of a color to go with. It's just an ultramarine blue and the turquoise. And that way it's not too dark and it just sets it apart just a little bit. So I'm just gonna mix it up here. And when I find color combinations that I really like, I tend to use them a lot. Just because, I don't know, I just gravitate towards certain kind of colors. And sometimes I force myself to use different colors and to think outside the box and to use colors that I wouldn't normally use. But the things that make me really happy is when I can just, you know, use the colors that I really love time and time and time again. So I'm gonna, like, I think I'm just gonna kind of go like that because I want this shape to pop, which is like a moon, you know, it's like an abstract kind of a moon. So I want that shape to pop, so I'm gonna cover it up. And like, I really love this pink and gold here, but I'm gonna cover it up. And that's the part about mixed media. Sometimes you just have to cover up things that you really love. And it's like, it's so painful to me. I'm like, I don't want to cover this up, but I know that if I don't cover it up, it's gonna turn, it's just not gonna look, it's gonna look terrible. So sometimes you just have to sacrifice those things that you love and just know that it's still there. So I'm gonna keep, like, say, like, I kept that like pink over there, and I'm keeping this pattern over here and this little bit of pink over there. And that's what I meant when I said earlier, like, if the eye is gonna look at this, it's just gonna see this field of blue here, over here. But if you look at it closely, there are some, you know, patterns and interest and variations. And that just really adds to the whole page. So now what I'm gonna do is just kind of cover all this up. And it really pains me to cover up this pink, but it has to go. There we go. And now this side is going to be fairly simple because there's not that much of the background as there was on the other spread, on this page over here. So what I'm gonna do is now I'm gonna let this completely dry because the oil sticks are wet and they need to completely dry. And then I will come back in a couple of days and then I will work the page. But this page really did not need a lot of layers. It just kind of happens that way sometimes, where this is only the third layer. And I say only because in mixed media, well, for me anyways, I use a lot of layers. I do a lot of layers. Like sometimes it can be 5 or 6 or 7 layers. It can go that much. So this spread just kind of came together with very few layers. Now I'm probably still gonna, you know, push and pull and say, oh, I'm not happy with this needs to go, and blah blah blah. But for the most part, it just came together relatively easy, or, you know, it didn't require a lot of layers. So as you can see, it's taking shape. It's got some meat and dimension here. And now when I come back, I can add facial features to the face, and I can add some text and some details. But for the most part, this was a spread that came together really quite, you know, without a lot of like layers and thinking, oh, you know, what do I do? Like a lot of times I struggle, and then sometimes I don't, and it comes together fairly quickly, and I just never know. Like, who knows what why that is? I don't know. Okay, so I'm gonna let that there, let it alone. And now I'm gonna let it completely dry and then come back and figure out, you know, do I wanna cover up more of the dresses? Do I wanna leave it like this? I'll probably add some facial features, some text, some details. But for the most part, this spread came together fairly quickly. Okay, so thank you so much for watching, and I hope you got something out of this. And we'll see you next time. Okay, bye.